Hi BookTube, my name is Juan. I am just one reader. 2020 is almost over, so that means it's time to present one of my favorite videos to make every year, my top 10 worst books of the year. So in this list, I will be mentioning some books that I read throughout 2020 that were boring, infuriating, frustrating, annoying, or just disappointing. This will be a ranked list. That means that I will start with number 10, which was the least awful of the awful, and then I will work my way up into my number 1, which is the absolute worst experience that I had reading-wise in 2020. Are you ready? Come with me. Let's embrace negativity together. We all need it. And let's get started with my top 10 worst books of 2020. Coming in at number 10, Cold Comfort Farm by Stella Gibbons. Now, this is by no means a bad book. It's just a book that had a lot of potential. It started out really well with British satire at its finest, colorful, quaint characters, really good humor. It was very whimsical and I was loving it. But it's a book that just did not deliver in the second half. It became very boring and very pointless all of a sudden, and I quickly disengaged. So yeah, even though it's a book that has its charm, it was very disappointing to see that it did not stick the landing. Coming in at number 9, The Ascent of Rum Doodle by W.E. Bowman. Another example of a very funny satire, British satire that just did not live up to its premise. I found this book slightly charming, mildly entertaining, sometimes very silly, but ultimately quite meaningless. Coming in at number 8, Patria by Fernando Aramburu. This is originally a Spanish novel, but it has been translated to English as Homeland, I believe. Many people are going to hate me for including this on this worst of the year list because it's a very celebrated novel, both on the critics circle and by, common readers. It's a best-selling novel. It's a critically acclaimed novel about Spanish conflict in the Basque country in Spain. I thought the beginning of the book was really wonderful and I was loving it. It was very informative and dramatically important at the same time, but then it became very boring, very dull, and again, I quickly disengaged and I was ready for the book to be over. So coming in at number 7, Everything I Never Told You by Celeste Ng. Another book that is beloved by many readers out there. I think people love this book because of the subject matter and the issues, the social issues and the themes that it addresses, but the book itself I thought was pretty badly executed. It's a personal taste thing, of course, but I just thought it was not good at all. I thought the writing style was very mediocre. It was very poorly told, in my opinion, and even though I really celebrated what it was discussing between the lines, I thought the story and the characters and everything was just not good. Coming in at number 6, A Head Full of Ghosts by Paul Tremblay. This book was so bad and so cheaply done that I frankly don't even want to discuss it anymore. Let's just say that this is one of the worst horror novels that I have read in recent memory, really. It felt very serious, like the author was trying to be very serious about what he was trying to do, but it was just preposterous and I found it very silly and very badly written. So I just kept laughing inappropriately at horrible things that were happening here because it's like one of those really bad, cheap horror movies that are so bad that they become funny. That's what this was. Coming in at number 5, The Humans by Matt Haig. This book started out really well. It's about an alien that comes down to Earth and starts giving really sharp commentary on human behavior and human relationships. So it becomes very interesting and very whimsical and very funny and also true. The problem was that by the halfway point of the novel, the author decided to take take a turn and the book just becomes something else, and everything that was good about the book was completely destroyed. It became saccharine sweet, just awful, so sweet and so cheesy and corny that it gave me diabetes. It's a book that I wanted to throw out of the window. It was so infuriating. I felt betrayed. I felt cheated, and it's such a pity because the beginning was quite good and it completely annihilated itself. Coming in at number 4, The Day of the Triffids by John Wyndham. I was expecting this book to be thrilling and very scary, and instead I found it incredibly boring and pointless, and I was just rolling my eyes. It was so disappointing. I just felt that the author made some terrible decisions in terms of the storytelling. The premise is actually quite good and quite chilling, but again, the author just took a turn and the book became so ridiculously boring and pointless, and I could not think that it was possible that the author was taking the reader in the direction that he actually took the reader. And so it was just awful to watch. Such bad storytelling, in my opinion. Coming in at number 3, Signal to Noise by Silvia Moreno Garcia. This book is atrocious. This book is infuriating on many different levels. It's young adult fiction of the bad kind. It's cheap, it's mediocre, it's corny, it's ridiculous. You want to shake the characters and just make them realize what they're doing. The characters are very cartoonish, very one-dimensional. It's like a Mexican telenovela, like a soap opera. It's a book that is supposed to be a mixture of fantasy and music, and I really thought that the fantasy elements and the music elements were non-existent. They were barely there. It was just your typical mediocre dime a dozen young adult bad novel. On top of everything else, this book is set in Mexico City, which is where I live. I have lived here in Mexico City my entire life, and I found the references to Mexican culture and to Mexican things to be horrible. The Mexican representation that you find in this book is the kind of representation that you find at the Mexican Pavilion in Epcot. It was so trashy. It was clearly Mexican culture washed down, like watered down version of that for an American teenage audience, and it was so horrible. Ridiculous book, atrocious. Coming in at number 2, The Disappearance of Stephanie Meyer by Joel Dicker. This book was probably the most disappointing one of 2020 because I love Joel Dicker's work. I have enjoyed it previously. Joel Dicker, in case you don't know, is the author of one of my favorite crime thriller novels, The Truth About the Harry Caber Affair. I am always recommending that book to everybody. It's so great. So coming into to this novel, The Disappearance of Stephanie Meyer, I could not believe what was going on. This book is seriously flawed. It has so many unnecessary characters and plot points. It's so bloated. The mystery is very bad. It was the saddest experience that I had in 2020, watching an author that I have admired so much just come to this, such a low point. And finally, my number 1 worst book of the year has to be The Overstory by Richard Powers. This is a very controversial, unpopular opinion, of course, so take it with a grain of salt. This is a Pulitzer Prize winner. It's a critical success. It's a best-selling novel. I read this with many readers from around the world. We did a read-along together, and I could see that many people were loving it, but I strongly disliked it. I think my main issue, which is a very important issue for me with this book, is that I could always see the author behind it. I could always see the author pulling strings and doing things that felt very manipulative to me. It was like so preachy and so forced. I felt like I was being force-fed this message, this discourse, which is a very good message. You know, it's a message of ecology and awareness of our environment. So it's a good theme, it's a good issue that the author is trying to put forward. But I absolutely hate books that feel so manipulative and preachy and like they are trying to push an agenda, political, ideological, whatever. Any kind of agenda that is being force-fed into my reading self, I will completely despise. I don't like that. I really disliked the experience of reading this book. I also found the book quite boring and quite meandering and bloated, but that's not really the main issue. My main issue is how ridiculously artificial it felt because it was serving the agenda. So I just didn't feel like that was an experience that for me was valuable. I really dislike that. I really hate when I can see the author in every single thing that is going on in the book. Like you can see backstage, the author is trying to do certain things and manipulate you. So yeah, even though this book might not be horrible objectively, I just really disliked the experience of being force-fed. Those were my top 10 worst books or reading experiences that I had in 2020. I feel so liberated and refreshed now. So please leave a comment down below and let me know, what books did you really not enjoy this year? What are your most infuriating reads or the most disappointing ones? I am here to discuss negativity because I feel like we all have to indulge and embrace negativity every once in a while. So thanks for watching. I am Just One Reader and I will see you on the next video.